What are design objectives? They are to communicate with the design team and the content experts what you intend to do with the lesson that you're creating. There is a direct link from the instructional analysis to the evaluation and the instruction. To learn more about the instructional analysis, please view Part 2. They are more focused than normal course objectives. They're focused specifically on different parts of the instructional analysis. These are later transformed into user-friendly learner objectives. As you learned in Part 1, objectives need to be observable, measurable, specific, and replicable. You start with your instructional hierarchy, and working from there, each behavior becomes a design objective, and from each of your design objectives becomes an evaluation item. Discrete objectives for design work contain the conditions of performance, or given what, the performance, do what, and the criteria, how much or how well. Let's look at this example. Identify weekly bulletins. Here's our objective. The learner will identify weekly bulletins, but it seems to be missing some parts. So how do we correct this? Okay, let's take a look at the correction. Now we have a condition, given examples, as well as a performance, identify the weekly bulletin that needs to be posted in a blog, and the criteria, the number 4. This implies that they will do it correctly. Going from our subskills to objectives, for every subskill box in the instructional analysis hierarchy, there should be one objective. If you need to write more objectives, you should break the subskill into several boxes. If several test items come from one subskill, you will also need more boxes. Here is another example. You see the word different kinds here? Now we have 2 objectives. So how do we correct this? Instead, we need to make 2 subskills and change our hierarchy. We now add a snorkel and a mask, as well as a view box. Okay, here's another example. Identify mobile advice. But now we've written 2 objectives. One includes a description, and the other includes a picture. These are actually 2 different types of skills. So how do we correct this? Let's look here. We've actually added another subskill. One is to define the mobile device, and the other is to identify mobile device. You really need both of these behaviors in this case. Our hierarchical order is important. Sometimes when you start to write objectives, you find that you have it incorrectly. So if one objective seems harder than the one above it, you may have the boxes in the wrong order. You may need to change the hierarchical order of your boxes. We also need to look at is whether the objective directly parallels or matches the behavior in the subskill. Let's take a look. Over here in our subskill we have the word discriminate, and it is an entry behavior. But in the objective we have 4 definitions. That definitely does not match. So how do we correct this? Instead, we should use the word define when we're talking about definitions. Note that entry behaviors can actually be above the discrimination level. It doesn't matter what level you use. Entry behaviors are any of the subskills that the learners already have. Next, we need to make sure they're measurable. Let's take a look. All right, we have the word calculate and will learn. Will learn does not seem very measurable. Can I see somebody learning? That's pretty hard. I can't see what they're doing. Let's see how we can fix that. Okay, calculate. Look, we actually can use the verb we already have in our subskill. It helps you make an easy objective. Let's now look at the domain of learning. Does the objective reflect the correct domain of learning? There are certain words that we tend to use for each domain. Let's look. Classify. Choose. They don't seem to match. Classify would indicate that it's an intellectual skill, while choose would indicate that it's in the affective domain, or it's an attitude. How can we correct this? Okay, let's look at it now. Classify the music into categories, and we will sort them. Sorting is a form of classifying, so that would be fine. You could also easily use the word classify. If you're trying to reach a higher order level in your intellectual skills, the terminal objectives should be at the level of problem solving. These objectives usually reflect a more difficult and complex task. They should reflect the culmination of the combined rules. In that case, you must write an objective and test or evaluation item for it. Many people think they don't need to because they've already had those combined skills, but you want to see all of the skills used together for that terminal objective. That's the end of this presentation. Here are some references for your further study. I hope you will join us for the next part of the series. Aloha.